It's your Feel Good Breakfast show, Expresso on S3. And with the return to work in a hybrid fashion, we're about to chat to business speaker and human potential expert, Nikki Bush, about what this looks like and how to create a sense of team, given that if you are not back in the office full-time, how to really achieve that from a virtual perspective.
And such an important question to ask as well, given the fact that so many people have anxiety around going back to the office. And how do we get the connection going? So, Nikki Bush, good morning. It's so nice to have you along.
Good morning, Carl and Zoe.
So let's start off. I know it sounds like a strange, basic question, but what does it mean to be in a team?
Well, it's a good question, actually, because it's all about collaboration with other people, moving forward towards a common goal. So that could be, you know, at work, you've got a common goal. You've got to deliver something in a division, a department, as a company to the end user, the customer. Or it could be, for example, a sports team. That's a lovely analogy. And then, of course, a family is also a team.
Well, myself and Wasty, I consider him family because we are a team in the morning, we're a team in the afternoons. But what about people that are in multiple teams?
That's a really good question, Zoe, because there's been some global research done by the ADP Research Institute. They looked at 19,000 companies across 19 countries, and they worked out that people at work are 91% of people are in one team and 71% are in multiple teams. And this is really interesting because let's think about that. We're teaming with teams, quite literally teaming with teams. And in every one of those teams, we want to contribute and we want to matter. And in every one of those teams, we want to feel a sense of belonging and togetherness, don't we?
Most definitely, most definitely.
Yeah, because I also want to serve each team with the same amount of conviction as the other team as well. And of course, there are teams that get jealous of other teams, but that's another conversation completely. But here's the thing. People are actually going into the office sometimes on rotational shifts, other times actually full-time back in the office. So is it necessary to work in the same physical space to create a sense of togetherness, or is that just a myth?
So this is a good question because there's been a lot of research into this recently. And a lot of it is very dependent on the leader of the team, how they show up, how they create connection and cohesion. And what we've discovered is that it's less about place and more about the person. And it's more about making sure that the psychological needs of individuals are met. So if you think about pre-COVID, a company with large teams would go on big team building events, off-site. They would go and whatever, abseil and climb up walls and go paintballing and things like that. Now, that used to cut it, but it doesn't anymore because in a way, it relies on a lot of rah-rah to get people on the same side. And today, things have changed. We can't treat everybody the same to get them on board. We actually have to get down to the individual unit in the team and get to know each and every person. What are their strengths? What are their gifts? What are their talents? How are they going to contribute to this team? And so we can talk a little more about those psychological needs because it is vitally important that we get this right.
Most definitely. I'm looking forward to that conversation because, I mean, there are massive companies and I can just imagine some employees are just a number in the biggest system of things. But stay tuned with us because Nikki Bush is not going anywhere. We've got more Team Talk with Nikki coming your way.
It's my Feel Good Breakfast Show.
Welcome back to Feel Good Breakfast Show, Expresso here in S3, and we're continuing our conversation with business speaker and human potential expert Nikki Bush, creating a sense of teamwork in a most likely hybrid work environment. It's quite tough, it's tricky, but I'm sure there are many facets that Nikki are about to take you through that could make it that much more easier. So, Nikki, welcome back. I'm looking forward to expanding a bit more on what we've chatted about in our first segment around teamwork, making the dream work, so to speak. But I think it's important to just touch on the fact that there's an element of psychological safety. It's kind of the latest buzzword that I've been hearing in the circles. How are psychological safety and togetherness or sense of team linked?
This really is a buzzword, Carl, this psychological safety. So there are three things that team leaders or line managers need to really understand. And that is that employees want you to know them. So know their strengths, know what gifts they bring to the team. They want you to focus them. In other words, what's expected of me? I need to know what's expected of me and help me focus my strengths so that I can contribute. And then the third one is an interesting one. Care for me. That doesn't mean you have to look after me and babysit me, but there's that degree of empathy that has crept into the workplace today that is very, very important. And if there's that interplay of empathy, then if I help you get what you want and what you need in the business, then you will get what you need in order to deliver. So it's a two-way street between the team leader or manager and the employee, that they need to understand they're helping each other to deliver and that they are cogs in the same wheel, part of the same team. And if one piece of the team falls apart, it impacts on the whole team. So that's why we really need to be building this culture of trust versus fear. And we really are shifting away from this top-down command and control kind of structure to more of a bubbling up and engagement where people want to be part of this team because it's good for them. It doesn't just bring them a salary, but it actually brings a sense of togetherness and belonging. And let's face it, you're actually spending more time with your team in the real world or virtually than you do with your family in terms of awake hours.
So connecting in that way, it's so important. I know that team building events used to be the way to get a team to gel. I know I've done a few of them as an MC in the virtual hybrid space. But has this changed within that space, within the working arrangements? I mean, are these team buildings still effective to create cohesion in a team?
I think they're still important, Carl, but I think the intentional connection and intentional communication that we do on a daily basis with members of our teams is trumping team building. And team building, let's face it, used to happen, say, twice a year. Once at the beginning of the year, and then that team spirit had to last for 6 months, and then once in the middle of the year, and it had to last for the second 6 months. People can't go without positive strokes in between anymore because the levels of fear and anxiety because of disruption and change are through the roof. Even going back to this kind of hybrid scenario, which gives employees a lot more flexibility and control, is causing a lot of fear and anxiety. So companies got me in to help them take their employees to work from home, and now they're getting me back in to help their employees adjust to a hybrid situation because change brings with it grief, loss, fear, anxiety, and depression. And we need to help our teams get through all of that in order to perform.
All these interesting dynamics there. We sometimes just think, oh, work from home, okay, go back to the office, but you forget about the impact it really has on that team connection. Nikki, thank you so much for joining us today. You're always such a wealth of knowledge.
It's such a great pleasure. And of course, there's lots more information about this in my book, Future Proof Yourself, and at nikkibush.com.
And there you have it. And you saw the book as well. You can find out more information in that book. It's called Future Proof Yourself. And why not book Nikki for her Creating Happy Juice for Teams workshop at nikkibush.com. Get it now. And remember, teamwork makes the dream work.